Please subscribe to my channel and click on the bell icon to get the regular updates of my channel, and do not forget to like, comment and share. Hello everyone, welcome to SaaS with ServiceNow. Every platform should have a security model to make sure that different types of data available in the platform is visible to authorized users only. Similarly, ServiceNow also has its own security model for data security, which is managed via ACLs in ServiceNow platform. This tutorial is divided into two parts. First part is this video, in which you will learn what are ACLs in ServiceNow and how they get processed when a user accesses any object in the platform. Second part is another video, link is mentioned in the description, in which you will learn creation of different types of ACLs in ServiceNow practically with examples. What is ACL and what are ACL rules? ACL is access control list, which is a list of access configurations for different elements in ServiceNow like records, tables, and fields. ACL rules are configurations defined in each ACL to restrict access for the elements in the platform or to provide access to the users. As an example, security incidents created in incident table should not be visible to all IT users except security teams. In ServiceNow, if no ACL is created or found for any table or object, then user will have access to the table or object. In order to provide access to the right users, you need to create ACLs. ServiceNow already has some ACLs which restrict access to different tables and objects, so there is rare possibility that no ACLs are available in the system for any object or table. Components of ACL. When you create an ACL rule in ServiceNow, you provide three inputs. First one is object, which is the element of ServiceNow platform like table or field on which you want to restrict access for the users, or you want to provide access for the users. Second is operation, which is type of operation you want to restrict or provide access on selected table or object for the users. And the third one is permission, which is required to the user to get the access for the object or table. ServiceNow has a table to track all access controls in which you can create new ACLs or edit existing ACLs. You can see out-of-the-box module ACL under System Security Application, which shows the list of out-of-the-box ACLs. However, you can create new ACLs as well as per your requirement. ACL Form. When you open a new record of ACL, the form looks like this, which has fields like type, where you can select type of ACL you want to create, like Racket Type or UI page. These are basically type of object on which you want to apply the rules. Next is operation, which you can select to specify what operation you want to restrict or enable for the users. Next is admin overrides. You can check this checkbox to override the access applied by the ACL rule. If you have any ACL created and this checkbox is checked, then security rule mentioned in the ACL will not be applied to ServiceNow admins or the users who have admin role. Next is name, in which you can select the object as table and fields on which you want to restrict or provide access to the users. Once you are done with these configurations, then ACL provides you three places where you can mention which user and how a user should have access to any particular object or table and its records. First one is requires role, in which you can select the roles you want to give access. If a user will have that role, then user can access same table or object, else not. Second is conditions, in which you can select the fields on the table selected to apply the condition to provide access to the users, which is also mentioned in maybe in the requires roles. Or even role is not required, but if role is not mentioned, even in that case, the people who can access, but they should definitely meet that condition mentioned in this condition. And the last one is scripting, which can be enabled when you select advanced checkbox. And you can write this script that is in JavaScript in this script field, which will be populated once you check this advanced checkbox. Now this script should always return true to provide access to the user as per the logic mentioned in the script. ACL evaluation. If ACL is available for any object or table, then it is evaluated for logged in users. As I mentioned, we have 3 places for evaluation: requires roles, conditions, and a script field. One of the important point of ACL is if you have mentioned values in all these 3 places, then all 3 should return true to provide access for the operation selected in the same ACL. Let's say you have a user who wants to access records of a table. When user tries to interact with the table via form or list, then system searches for ACLs. If ACLs are not found, then user will be able to access table records. However, I mentioned earlier that this will be rare situation when you don't have any ACL for any object or table in ServiceNow. When ACLs are found, then it starts evaluating each ACL. And in each ACL, it will look for those 3 places. And the first evaluation is performed for the role of user accessing the table or object. If user will not have the same role mentioned in the ACL, then user will not be able to access table records. If user has same role, then it evaluates the condition. That's another piece, that's another section. So it evaluates the condition mentioned in the ACL configuration. And if ACL condition does not match, then user will not be able to access the table records. Last evaluation is script, in which script logic is evaluated. And if script will return false as per logged in user, then user will not be able to access table records. So whatever condition you have provided, maybe you have provided the condition as per the logged in user, maybe you have provided any other custom logic as per the script. In that case, if it will not return true, then user will not be able to access records. And if this script will return true, then user will be able to access all the records. So overall, in order to provide access to the user for any object or table in ServiceNow, the evaluation of all these 3 places mentioned in the ACL should always return true. If all of them are mentioned in the ACL, then they should all return true, else user will not be able to access the records. Object types. In ACL, you have different types of objects on which you can apply the ACLs. Racket-based object, which restrict or provide access for the records in a table in ServiceNow to the users. UI pages, which can restrict access for the UI pages or provide access. You can also restrict or provide access for client callable script includes and processors. As a developer, you will mostly use Racket Type ACLs in ServiceNow. In this video, we will majorly learn about Racket Type of ACLs. In Racket Type ACL, you select type as Racket while creating new ACL. And then you select name, in which you select table on which you want to apply that ACL, and you also select field on which you want to apply that ACL. Overall, These table and fields are the objects on which you want to restrict or provide access to the different types of users of system. In Racket Type ACL, you also select operation. Let's see different types of operations which are available in ACL, which you can select while creating new ACL. And the first one is execute. If you will select execute as operation, then user cannot execute any script on a Racket or UI page. Next is create. If you want to restrict users to create new Rackets in a table and they should not see new button on the list view of the table, then you can select create operation. Next is read, which is selected to restrict or provide read access for the Rackets and fields. Then you have write operation, which is selected to restrict or provide access, basically added access for Rackets and fields of a table. Then you have delete operation, which is selected to restrict or provide delete access for Rackets and fields in a table. So if you want to restrict few users so that they cannot delete a table or delete the Rackets of the table, in that case you can definitely select delete operation. Next is edit task relations, which restrict access to edit task relationships. Then you have edit CI relations, which restrict access to edit CI relationships. Then you also have save as template. Now in ServiceNow, you can create templates. Now if you want to restrict a table or a field to use as a template, then you can use this operation. You also have add to list. So if you want users that they cannot view or personalize specific columns in the list, in that case, you can select this operation as well. And another one is list edit, which basically restrict access to edit any list view. So we have multiple Rackets in a list of the table. In that case, if you don't want users or few users to edit that list, maybe edit any field, in that case, you can definitely create this kind of ACL. Then overall, you can select the operation. And then we have report on and report view, which will basically restrict access for reporting on tables. In Racket Type ACL, you have two different types of ACLs. One is table ACL, which is applied at table level, and another one is field ACL, which is applied at field level. Now both types of ACLs are applied in sequence as per the availability of that particular ACL. Even table ACLs and field ACLs are of different types. So now we will see that how table and field ACLs are applied with example. And then we will see different types of table and field ACLs which are also applied together in sequence. But in this example, we will focus on table and field ACLs together, that how exactly they are applied. And then in further slides, you will see that we will talk about how exactly different types of ACLs are also applied in sequence. So let's say when any particular user wants to interact with the table, it means he wants to access the records of any particular table. Now in that case, system look for table and field ACLs, which are created for those table or for that particular table which user is trying to access. Now if both are passing, then user should be able to access records of that particular table. And if none of the table ACLs are passed, however, field ACL is passed, in that case, user will not be able to access the records of the table, as table ACL is must to get the access to the records. Let's say if one of the table ACL is passed, however, one of the field ACL is not passed, then user will be able to access the records of that particular table. However, field on which ACL is created will not be accessible to the user. So user will not be able to access, and depends on the kind of operation you select. Maybe if you have created read ACL, in that case, if you have selected read operation, in that case, user will not be able to read that field, the value available in that field on all the records of that table. However, user can still read all other fields records of different records we have in the system. This is how table and field ACLs are evaluated in the platform. Table ACLs. There are three types of table ACL in ServiceNow, in which no field value is selected and it is kept as none while creating it. Starting with table.none, which is applied on same table which user is trying to access. Next is parent table.none, which is applied on parent table of same table which user is trying to access. If I give you a quick example, let's say incident, if user is trying to access incident table. Now incident table is basically inherited and extended from task table. So in that case, system will also look for the ACL available on task table as well. And the last one is star.none, which is applied on all tables of the instance. So these are three different table ACLs. Then we have field ACLs, in which field is also selected with the table to provide access or restrict access on that particular field of a table. And the first one is table.field, which is applied on one field of a selected table which user is trying to access. Next is parent table.field, which is applied on one field of parent table of main table on which access should be applied. If I give you an example, we have few fields, let's say short description on task table. Now, short description is definitely inherited from, if I talk about incident table, it is available in incident as well because it is inherited from task table. So whatever ACLs, if you don't have any ACL on incident level for short description, and if you have any ACL on basically parent table, in that case that will be evaluated. So that's how this sequence works. And then we have star.field, which is applied on one field of all tables of system like sys created on, which you can find in each table of ServiceNow. And then we have table.star, which is applied on all fields of selected table which user is trying to access. Let's say you don't want to provide access to all the fields for specific users. In that case, you can create this kind of ACL. Next is parent table.star, which is applied on all fields of parent table of main table on which access should be applied. And the last one is star.star, which is all fields of all tables of system. Now all these different table and field ACLs are evaluated in order. Let's understand this with an example. You have a table in ServiceNow which user wants to access, and this table has a parent table as well. When user tries to access the records of this table, then before system present that data to the user, it processes and evaluates ACLs related to that table. This process starts with search of ACL rules available for the table and its parent table. If main table does not have parent table, then ACLs of parent table will not be available for evaluation. That means only child table ACLs will be evaluated, or maybe all table ACLs. Now in this case, if ACLs are found, then it checks for table ACLs first. So when user tries to interact with any table and access the records, so before data is presented, it always looks for the ACL. And if ACLs are found, it checks first whether table ACLs are available or not. Overall, we have three different ACLs, three different table ACLs: table ACL, parent table ACL, and all table ACLs. Now, table ACLs are evaluated first. If they are available, then parent ACL, and then all table ACLs. That's a sequence of evaluation. So if table ACL is available, then it will be evaluated first. If parent table is available, then it will be evaluated then. If let's say table ACL is also not available, then it will evaluate parent table. That's how this whole basically evaluation works as in sequence. Now, if system finds table ACL and evaluates to true, however, other two ACLs don't basically evaluates to true, that means they're not passing the permission for the logged in user. In that case, user will be able to access the rackets, as child table ACL will always mask the ACLs of parent table. So whatever ACLs you have written, you have created for parent table, if child table is basically giving the permission to the logged in user, then user can access the rackets of that particular table. Now, if child table is not available and parent ACL and all table ACLs are available, in that case, system will evaluate them because child table ACL is not available. Now, if parent table ACL evaluates to true and all table ACL, which is star basically, it evaluates to false, then user will still have access to the rackets of the table. Because in this case, parent table ACL will definitely mask all table ACL. And if all table ACL is found and it evaluates to true. So let's say we don't have child table ACL, we don't have parent table ACL. In that case, if all table ACL is found and evaluates to true, then user will have access to the table rackets. Now, if child table ACL is available and it does not pass the permission and parent table ACL passes the permission. So overall we have 3 ACL. So table ACL, that is the child table ACL, is not passing the permission for the user, but parent table is passing the permission and all table ACLs is also not passing the permission. In that case, user will not be able to access the rackets. The reason behind it, because child table is not allowing it. So user doesn't have that permission. So in that case, even if parent table is giving the permission, parent table ACL, in that case, if table ACL is not giving the permission, then user will not be able to access the rackets of that particular table. That means the child table. Now, as of now, data is still not presented to the user because it is still basically processing the whole evaluation in the backend. Now, once table evaluations are done, then system will look for field level ACLs and it will evaluate field ACLs, and that is also in sequence. Now this starts with ACL of fields of child table, that is table.field. If single field ACL is available, then it is evaluated first. Then system evaluates ACL of parent table and then any table ACLs. And you can see the sequence as well. If single field ACL is not available, then it look for all field ACLs for main table, parent table and all tables as well. If system will pass any single field ACLs, then user will be able to access rackets, all rackets including that field as well, because system is passing the ACL. Now, if single field ACL is not passed, then user will be able to access the rackets. However, user will not be able to access that one field which is selected in the ACL. And if single field ACLs are not found, then it will look for all field ACLs. And if they are also evaluates to false, then user will not have access to all rackets of the table. If it is passed, so let's say all these ACLs are passed, or maybe your system maybe found one of the ACL. In that case, user will be able to access all rackets of the table with all fields. Now, if there are two similar types of ACLs created, then user will be able to access rackets if at least one ACL will be returning true. So let's say you have any particular table In that case, if you are creating two similar type of ACL and both are, let's say, read. Now, if the logged in user, maybe as per the evaluation, if user is basically passing at least one ACL, in that case, user will be able to access the records of that particular table. Depending on the type, basically other types of ACLs as well, like field level ACLs or other ACLs as well. In next video, you will learn about creating different types of ACLs practically in my personal developer instance. Please provide your comments for any question or feedback, and if you think I'm able to change your learning experience in ServiceNow platform, then do not forget to like and share the video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.